Welcome back. All right, so now is as good a time as any to talk about Connor McDavid and do a video where we discuss what an era we are witnessing for the Edmonton Oilers and for the league. Connor McDavid was drafted first overall in 2015. A lot of hype about him before he came into the league. He has more than lived up to said hype. He really is the player by which others are measured. Now, the question then becomes one of, but is he really the best player in the game? And that's where you're going to get varying opinions. In my opinion, yes. Connor McDavid is the best player in the National Hockey League. Draisaitl, his own teammate, is very good as well. Excellent superstar player. Austin Matthews, great player. Sidney Crosby, still one of the best. And I think you could have an interesting argument for whether or not Crosby is still the better all-around player than McDavid. But McDavid's been excellent really throughout and from the beginning. Now, 2015, 2016, of course, he ended up getting injured, missed a lot of time that year. He played 45 games, 16 goals, 32 assists for 48 points. And he finished third in Calder voting, which was remarkable considering he only played 45 games. And usually to get serious consideration for an award, you have to have played 60-plus games minus goaltenders. And even goaltenders, there seems to have been a bit of a clawback in terms of how many games a goaltender has to play before they're really seen as a Vezina-eligible goaltender. Now, for McDavid, despite the injury that took him out for a lot of 2015, 2016, he has not had the same injury problems since then. 16, 17, he plays every game, 82 games, 30 goals, 70 assists, which led the league, 100 points, which also led the league. That's how you perform as a sophomore. Made his playoff debut, had 5 goals, 4 assists for 9 points in 13 games. And then there were certainly the questions about whether or not the Oilers were built for the playoffs at that point, and whether or not they could handle the real grind that the playoffs is. But it's interesting because when McDavid comes in, and then of course Matthews was drafted by the Leafs, 2016, 2017, the Oilers are flying high, and so is Toronto, and the question became one of which one's going to win more Stanley Cups, McDavid or Matthews? Which team's going to be more prepared? And here we are, it's 6 years later, and neither team has been in a final, much less won a cup yet. So he wins the Hart Trophy that year. He wins the Ted Lindsay Award. He wins the Art Ross. So he's an MVP. He's the best player in the league, according to the players. He is the number one player in terms of points. He's a first-team All-Star, and he plays in the All-Star game. What do you do for an encore? Well, he played all 82 games the following season, 41 goals, which was 6th overall, 67 assists, which is 3rd, 108 points, which is 1st. And it always felt like, yeah, 108 points is good. He can do more. And I think what we've seen in recent seasons is, yeah, he can do more. So he's a first-team All-Star in 2017-2018, wins the Ted Lindsay, wins the Art Ross, was 5th in Hart voting. And it is remarkable to be able to get Hart votes on a team that did not make the playoffs. He also played in the All-Star game that year to the surprise of no one. Unless he's injured, McDavid will be in the All-Star game every year. 2018-2019, or unless he opts out. 2018-2019, 78 games played, so he missed 4 that year. 41 goals, again, which is 6th, again. 75 assists, which is 2nd. 116 points, which is 2nd overall that year. So quite the drop-off. He was only 2nd overall in scoring that year. First-team All-Star, 3rd in Hart voting, and he played in the All-Star game. And so, again, the fact he's 3rd in Hart voting on a team that did not make the playoffs is nothing short of remarkable. 2019-2020, 64 games played before the pause, 34 goals, which was 10th overall, 63 assists, which is 2nd, 97 points, which is also 2nd, plays 4 playoff games against Chicago. They got upset. Wasn't McDavid's fault. 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points. He finished 5th in Hart voting and played in the All-Star game yet again. 2020-2021, a season without an All-Star game. 56-game season. Remember, that's where it was the Canadian division. 33 goals, which was 2nd overall. 72 assists, which was easily 1st. And 105 points in 56 games. Absolutely ridiculous numbers. In the playoffs, 4 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, as the Oilers get knocked out in the first round that year. So again, the narrative around the team is that they can't get over the hump in the playoffs. But again, I don't put that on McDavid. There may be some who look at, especially the 2021 elimination and say, well, McDavid didn't produce enough, but I wouldn't go that far. He's a first-team All-Star, wins the Hart, wins the Lindsay, wins the Art Ross, ho-hum. no big deal. He's just the MVP, the best player in the league voted on by players, and #1 in scoring. So his encore 2021-2022, as all the teams are playing all the teams again, 80 games played, so he missed 2 that year, 44 goals, which is 7th overall, 79 assists, which is 2nd overall, 123 points, which is 1st overall. Keep in mind, he was on pace for 150 early in the season and then had that drop off and ends up at 123 points with a drop off in production. In the playoffs, amazing. 16 games, 10 goals, 23 assists, 33 points. He was a second-team All-Star last year, wins the Art Ross, was second in Hart voting, and, of course, was in the All-Star game. So, for me, with McDavid, it's a matter of he's first, second, first, and scoring. He's the best player in the league. And doing it on a team that we can have the debate about how good they are. They did make it to the Final Four last year. Now, of course, they're sitting at 7-6 as I'm recording this, and there's issues, but it's not McDavid that's having an issue. In 13 games so far this year, he has 13 goals, which is 1st overall in the NHL, 14 assists, which is 3rd overall, 27 points, which, again, is 1st overall in the NHL. In 500 games, he has 252 goals, so he's on pace for 504 in 1,000 games, 472 assists. He almost has an assist per game, which, again, back in the 80s, we saw that with various players. It's almost unheard of in today's game. 724 points. So, absolutely crazy points totals being put up by him. He is, I believe, still 5th on the overall list in terms of points in their first 500 games. In the playoffs, 37 games played, 21 goals, 34 assists, 55 points. He's a very good producer in the playoffs. It's a matter of whether or not the Oilers team that surrounds him is going to be good enough to win a Stanley Cup. So 17 times in his career so far, he's been part of the weekly 3 stars, including, I believe it's twice already this season. He was first 7 times. And in terms of monthly 3 stars in the NHL, 10 times he's been in the 3 stars at the end of the month for the NHL. 7 times he's been first in that as well. So he really's been dominant. And then you look at his points per game over his career, it currently sits at 1.45, which on the all-time list is only behind Gretzky, Lemieux, and Bossy. Bossy's points per game would have come down if he'd played the full career. He should have, if not for his back. But yeah, Lemieux and Gretzky, 2 of the all-time greats, and McDavid's right there with them. Sidney Crosby's at 1.27. Now, do I expect him to stay at 1.45 over his entire career? No. At some point in time, players do slow down in terms of production. I think Crosby has sacrificed some of his production in order for the team to meet their goals, and is part of the reason that they've won 3 Stanley Cups, is Crosby being a really good team player. Not that Connor McDavid's not. He's been a very good team player, but as he gets older, I don't expect this points production to stay at that rate. Malkin is next on the active list with 1.17 point per game being scored, which again is elite, but it pales in comparison to McDavid, who has been a remarkable scorer. And then you get into the conversation about who the best overall player is in the league. And I thought about doing that for this video, and I thought, no, just leave it, just simple. We'll just have McDavid on the board. We'll talk about the first 500 games of his career, and then we can get into that debate at another time about how you really measure who the best player is overall in the NHL. But McDavid is the one who gets my vote. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And one question I'd ask at the end of this is, when Connor McDavid's contract is up, do we expect him to remain in Edmonton, or is it possible he ends up going somewhere else? And how much money could he make as a free agent on the market? And why would it just be the max? I think you'd kind of have to give him the max, wouldn't you? But let me know your thoughts. I do hope he remains in Edmonton throughout his career. I think that'd be great for him and for the organization. But do let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, go ahead and do so. I will talk to you again soon.